Dear Mr. President, good morning. A number of things that we would like to bring to your attention, and this becomes our weekly reminder of some of those things, and we go into them in detail today. And even as we do that, Dennis Aseto, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well, as you can see. I heard somebody say that. I said I must use it at some point. And there, I've used it, I've extinguished it, it's done.
So how are you?
I'm fine, as you can see.
Okay.
Karibu sana.
Yeah.
Good to have you here this morning. For reasons why we will. CT, we need you to tell us why we should get mortgages. 1. 2, where we should get them from.
You know, we all aspire for certain things. You aspire for a job. You aspire, if you're a man, to hopefully marry or have children.
Oh, okay.
And then you plan and aspire to have a place where you can live, that you can call your own. Mortgages help tremendously in achieving this particular dream. Diamond Trust Bank is saying, look, the dreaming is good. We can help you make that dream come true. We have a mortgage plan. Whether you're employed, whether you're self-employed, whether you're in the diaspora. We have a mortgage plan that we would like to discuss with you and something we'd like you to consider. The details are as follows. We have an interest rate that will charge you that will not go beyond the single digit. For 10 years, it's 9%. 25 years, 9.75%. We will then guarantee that interest doesn't move. No movement. Yes, this is into the wind. It's not a wind vane. It will stay exactly where it is for the duration of the payment.
Yeah.
There are no hidden charges. And more importantly, if you pay in advance of the schedule, we will not penalize you. Now, all you need to do is either come to us physically so that we can have a little chit-chat about this, or you can write to us. mortgages@dtbafrica.com.
Beautiful. And that's the way to go about it. Well, Dennis, since you're here, CT, has a proverb. And we're going to put you to work.
Okay.
Because CT will tell you what that is, and then, tell us what it means.
Okay. We are in the Republic of Burkina Faso.
Traore's homeland. Yeah.
Yes. Whose capital is?
Burkina Faso.
It's a question, yes. Anki knows.
Oh.
Anki, help.
Okay.
Help a brother.
Anki knows the capital of Burkina Faso. She's just pretending.
She knows it very well.
Nuapi.
Mom's the word.
Mom's the word, but
Nazana W.
it's ugly.
Ouagadougou.
Good.
It's answer now? Double, please.
W.
It's OU.
I beg you, the name of God.
Okay.
No, exactly.
Don't
No,
let
you
me
see, I had
finish
to
the way
bring
I
it.
started.
I had to, because every time I want to pronounce as it's written, I conflict the words. That's
It
why I
says
said that.
Ouagadougou.
You see?
So,
Please.
To each their
That's why I
own.
say
The proverb.
Ouagadougou. Right. Those who seek revenge must remember to dig 2 graves.
Those who dig revenge must remember.
Bro.
What is it?
This is not about digging revenge.
Okay.
It's a grave.
Oh!
Seek revenge must dig 2 graves. Okay. I went
Man, this
real
guy's going
quick.
funky on us.
I'm telling you.
To dig revenge on us.
Dig revenge. Okay,
But
we
pretty
dig,
much.
yeah, but
What I get from that is, in whatever it is you do, City, karma is alive. Will always come back to you tenfold. So whatever it is you do will come back to you. It's just a circle.
Indeed. That's it. Don't expect that you can do,
Yeah.
essentially what would be negative to somebody else and it will not come to your doorstep.
Exactly.
Essentially, you're taking yourself down as well. All right. That's great. Dear Mr. President, a number of things happening in the country as they were last week, as they were happening the week before. We saw things kind of take a tumble turn as they have been doing for the last couple of months. And it's far be it from a woke citizenry who must be involved in citizen-centric governance to say we will just look over it. Over the last couple of days, things have been a bit crazy. The Auditor General came out with a report that, if anything, at best is damning in terms of what should be when it comes to the healthcare system. One of the things that she did say is that we don't find, and this is interesting because her report placed it very interestingly, we don't find any indicators to show that the social health platform belongs to government. If anything, there are pointers to show that it is owned by individuals. Now, she did mention in that report certain organizations that have some kind of bearing to who this is, and that another thing that they have been able to find is that the indicators or the elements that were actually supposed to make sure that people's health in the country are taken care of are actually not. Now, there was a flurry of activity, and there has been. The CS for Health was in the Senate yesterday answering questions, and certain people said certain things. Before that, she was also called up on over the weekend by other senators. It has been said by the Super Cabinet Secretary, Prime Cabinet Secretary, I beg your pardon, Musalia Mudavadi, that okay, fine, this one, it doesn't seem like we've gotten it right. Let's see how we can tweak this a little bit. The senior advisor to the presidency, Moses Kuria, has also come out to say again, yeah, actually, we need to make sure that this thing is actually working. Senators Boni Khalwale, Okiam Tata, Edwin Sifuna, it goes across board. Everybody's come out to say, hey guys, perhaps we need to stop this thing and just call it a crime scene completely. No sooner than had he said we call it a crime scene is when Nancy Gavungu, in all her humility, came out and said, excuse me guys, just a little bit of a something, this thing belongs to a few individuals, and I'm not sure if what it was meant to do in the first place is actually being done for Kenyans. And she's left her report and then has gone back to Parliament and said, you know what, guys, I have given you the report. The next thing that should be done after this is actually you, as Parliament, who will tell us what to do. Are you going to investigate it? Are you going to take it to the DPP? Are you going to take it now to investigative agencies to find out what's going on? Dear Mr. President, the health system is in a shambles. Dear Mr. President, the one financial accountability officer that you have in the country at the highest level, in the name of the Auditor General, has come out to say that this thing has a problem. Before, you could say that there were rumblings here and there from Kenyans, maybe some, like CT says, who didn't ever bother to register, so had no place to speak, who just heard stories from Anki or heard stories from CT one day and said, well, you know what, Anki said it's not working, so it's not working. Or people who just want to criticize government every day and say, well, government is not working, so nothing is happening. That's where the rumbling started, dear Mr. President, and then it rose. It rose to the House of Parliament, dear Mr. President, where members of Parliament started to say, we've received one too many complaints from our constituents that there is a problem, that people go to hospital and not able to get the care that they need, dear Mr. President, that people go and they're told, well, we cannot serve you today. And then it continued to rise. And then your private and rural hospitals said, you know what, we are not going to be able to offer care to people who walk in without cash, or people who walk in and want to use the system because you have not paid us from NHIF days in the billions. So it rose even further, where the oversight body in the House, as Senate, said, we have to ask questions about what's going on here. Remember where it started, dear Mr. President, with the rumblings from people who were castigated by very many members of your government who said Kenyans are just making noise. And then the smoke has started to rise. And people at accountability level have continued to talk. Now, the most serious one when we come now is your number one financial accountability officer, who is the Auditor General, who has said there is a big problem here. 104 billion shillings ownership actually doesn't belong to government. It belongs to individuals. Dear Mr. President, the question today is very simple. What on earth is going on?
Mr. President, when Kenyans have been complaining over pretty much when SHA was there about their inability to access the services from SHA, which is their right because the Constitution says every Kenyan has the right to healthcare. And when they go to hospital and they find these challenges, Mr. President, all you need to do is to respond. Mr. President, when we talk about the SHA system having failed, Let me remind you that we had your senior advisor in this studio who spoke to us, and at that point, clearly, it was obvious that there are problems with this SHA system because he kept on calling governors on this show to get answers. Mr. President, that goes to show that this system needs a lot of work. Mr. President, also your senior advisor admitted in this show that, one, you never took this system through proper pilot process to be able to deal with the issues in this SHA system. Mr. President, the report by the Auditor General today, 104 billion shillings is not pocket change. This is money that has come from Kenyans' pockets. It is taxpayers who toil every single day. Like the gentleman who was in this studio today says that he's working very hard to get 50 shillings to be able to create a single GCO. He is the person you're taking this money from to be able to give him services, Mr. President, that you cannot explain to us who owns it. Today, Mr. President, I don't know who has my data because that system does not belong to you and the back end belongs to somebody else. Mr. President, I need you to tell me at this point, the data protection officer, what is my data? Who is using it? Because, Mr. President, even you, the head of state, cannot control it. And remember that the owners of these very same SHA have said we cannot come. I, as a seto, if I am a techie, I cannot come with another SHA which could be better than the SHA that you have, because the owners of these have stopped you, Mr. President, from coming in with another competing authority that would make our lives even better, Mr. President.
Mr. President, allow me to once again say it's not a very good morning for those who actually need these services. Mr. President, okay, you have said and denied the government is not actually paying 104 billion shillings for SHA system, is it not? Anyway, very well done, Mr. President, for directing the immediate payment of all hospitals owed up to 10 million shillings by the now defunct National Health Insurance Fund, NHIF, as the government moves to address a growing healthcare crisis. Mr. President, thank you for acknowledging that. Thank you for that move. But you see, Mr. President, we have a history of fear that it is one thing you say and the next that you do not actually implement this. Do you know, Mr. President, that it has gone so bad that there are certain people who are actually losing their jobs in those private hospitals based on this particular issue? I want to urge you, Mr. President, that even as you speak, please keep your word on this particular one, that we actually see a change, Mr. President, especially after acknowledging that for sure there is that crisis in the private sector and in the health, of course, religious-based health institutions. So, Mr. President, I will personally follow up with you based on this acknowledgement you have made and the funds that ought to reach these healthcare institutions. And Mr. President, it is a matter of not just say it, actually disburse this money, have the verifications done and updated, Mr. President.
Dear Mr. President, it's become apparent to me that the running of a government is an extremely complicated and often very difficult task. Mr. President, it's made much more difficult when the people who have been appointed, have been selected, have been employed to help you run the country do not bother to take the time to inform the citizenry of the things that your government is doing. And not a statement, but in detail so that it is understood. Mr. President, an opportunity not just to hear, but an opportunity to seek answers, to ask questions, to be informed, so that when a topic arises about something as important as the well-being and the health of this nation, the citizens can say that they are informed. On this subject, they are not informed. If they were well informed, the questions that they raise and the questions that they ask would be different. If they had been informed about the ownership of SHA in detail, not a statement, not something that is said in 2 sentences, in detail, so that it is understood how it is going to work. Everything about it, over time, explained, talked about. People who are members of parliament, who are elected to represent them, told so that they can also tell their people. Mr. President, this hasn't happened. So when people are angry and they speak in anger, it is because every time information is brought to them is like an 11th hour information where they're now being told in detail after a lot of conversation, and a lot of gaps have been filled, gaps which did not need to exist in the first place. If these people and yourself had taken the time to actually explain, Mr. President, you can't explain details of the things that happen in this country. Because if that is the case, then what do you need your ministers for? What do you need all these government officials for? You may make a statement. It acts as a guide, a policy guide, but the details of it, this is where we have a problem, Mr. President. We don't know many things. So we fill in the blanks. And when we fill in the blanks, most of those blanks are filled in terribly and badly. It is not that difficult. The people who serve in your cabinet are all Kenyans. The people who serve in your cabinet all grew up in Kenya. The people who serve in your cabinet all understand the fundamental problems that the citizens of this country face. What is so difficult about ensuring that these citizens are informed as they ought to? Or is it that they assume that the citizens don't matter so much? That so long as a statement is issued, it's adequate. So long as something is said every once in a while, it is adequate. No. It is not a demand, it is a fundamental right.
Right.
The citizens need to know, they need to be informed. And Mr. President, that's really what they're telling you.
Indeed. Mr. President, the complaints that you've made over the last few months about Kenyans not being satisfied with anything that you do. You've sat stood at many a podium and complained about the fact that Kenyans are ungrateful. You've talked about Kenyans not taking anything that you say in stride. And let me tell you why. It's because of some of the things that my brother Siti has just said. Kenyans don't know. You don't tell them. You're not being honest with them. And they get annoyed. And I keep saying that Kenyans want you to do better, Mr. President. Kenyans will you to actually succeed. But if you don't tell them, and if you're not honest with them, they will get annoyed. And that is what you see that makes you upset. So the answer lies right in your hands, Mr. President. If things are doing badly, tell them. If you've not been able to succeed, tell them that too. If you started off well and things went down the drain, guess what? Tell them, Mr. President. There's a book called Shall We Tell the President, written by Jeffrey Archer. And over 3 days, these individuals tried to really rally round to stop a security threat that was happening in the city of Washington, D.C. And at the very end of the book, when they had contained the threat, the last line of the book was, "Shall we tell the president?" At that point, there was no need because he didn't really know what had happened. But here you are, Mr. President, in glaring light of the reality that there are things that are going wrong. Nobody can run away from that. Some of your very best generals have even said and admitted to the fact that things are not going on right. Yes. Kenyans are only asking for you to tell them the truth. Kenyans are only asking for you to tell them that if something didn't go as planned, tell them that too. Let everybody be in the same basket so that you can have a better opportunity for governance. And that is what Kenyans are saying to you today. It's what they've said yesterday. And by God, it's what they're going to say tomorrow if things don't change. Kenyans want you to do better, Mr. President. They want you to tell them the truth. If things have gone south, they want you to tell them so that you can find your North Star. That is what Kenyans are asking you. Kenyans are not annoyed because they don't have something better to do. Kenyans are annoyed because you're not talking to them. And when you have an opportunity to, you're not telling them the truth. This is what Kenyans want. Tell them so that they know what to do. Tell them so that they know how to rally around you if they must. But tell them the truth. I implore you, Mr. President, bring Kenyans in on this journey with you. Don't leave them behind because they're equal participants and stakeholders with you in this journey towards Kenya that we're talking about. Don't leave them behind.
Mr. President, to tell you we shall, according to that book, we shall tell you, Mr. President. And we tell you this because we speak to these Kenyans on a daily basis. Mr. President, stop living in this glass house. Just step out of it and speak to Kenyans. You know, we need this information. The Constitution guarantees us the right to information, Mr. President. When you started about universal healthcare, which is a good thing, everybody wants good health system that functions, Mr. President. You said that you're getting rid of NHIF. Sawa. We said, sawa, Mr. President. But what was the process in coming up with SHA, Mr. President? Was there any bidding that happened as espoused in the constitution procurement laws of the country? Mr. President, the procurement process, the contractor was selected through a specially permitted procurement procedure by passing competitive bidding, Mr. President. It is at this point, Mr. President, that Kenyans do not have the information on who owns this. Where does their money go to? How is it being spent? Because, Mr. President, every budgeting year, we have billions and billions of shillings that have been set aside to go towards healthcare, Mr. President. But, Mr. President, what healthcare when the system that should guarantee that is not working, Mr. President? Mr. President, the Situation Room, the hot seat, an opportunity for you to sit here and talk, speak to Kenyans who want this information. This is my invite to you, Mr. President. You are watching, you are listening. Come, let's have that conversation. Explain to Kenyans in detail, as CT says on this show. In detail, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President. Perhaps your team has failed you, and I like when Aseta says, just step out of that glass house and speak to the people. You're a boy from Sugoi. You're the hustler. You understand what that particular person in the grassroots needs. Let me paint the picture. Mr. President, if you're not aware, patients in dire need of dialysis, cancer treatment, and other critical services, especially in private hospitals, are being forced, Mr. President, to pay cash or forgo treatment altogether. How does that sound, Mr. President? Do you have a chance to forgo treatment for such chronic diseases? If you are doubting me, Mr. President, let me give you one particular case in point. Mr. Philip Kababi, who is a dialysis patient. I will help you trace him, Mr. President, if you need to see him. Last week alone, his children pulled 30,000 shillings for 3 sessions. This week, they have skipped 1 session and he's waiting for them to raise more money, because his hospital does not accept SHA. What is left of Philip and his children, Mr. President? Forgo treatment? This is the real, actual picture on the ground. We just don't hate you. We're not calling you out because we want to destroy your reputation. These are real cases on the ground, Mr. President. They are real.
There's a lot that needs to be done, and there are conversations that we should have and that we cannot keep quiet about. Dear Mr. President, this gives us an opportunity for us to tell it to you as it is, raw, unapologetic, and to say that these are the issues that actually need some kind of focus. They need attention, and that, yes, the conversation is around something like this from different quarters, whether it is the rumblings of people, whether it is at the House of Parliament, within the National Assembly, within the oversight body of Senate, coming from the ministry, coming from a CS who failed to give answers yesterday. Not tried, not gave half answers, who failed to give answers about what is really going on. And then it gets to the top, where the Auditor General says that there's an even deeper problem than just not being able to access healthcare. Mr. President, if there's anything that you do when you wake up every day, go through your day, go back to bed at night if you sleep, this must be paid attention to, dear Mr. President. It's 9:30. We'll take a break and come back and continue with this after.
Star 811 star 916 hash to get Niwe by Mr. Dawa.
Ama tufanye hivi nikikudrop uingie kwa cyber kwanza, uedit CV yako, useme ulikuwa unafanya kazi kama msee wa IT kwa kampuni yangu, alafu niandike kama referee. For real? For real. Mimi akinipigia ndajua venye ndawaambia. Yaani kumbe hata uko mgonjwa madam?
Sisi tuko kazi kama vile uko kazi. Shughulika maisha yako.
Nutuweke hapa.
Sawa. Nini maana wewe? Utashinda hapo kikomplain wewe kila saa. Unafikiria nimekuwa hapa nisikize mashida zako, si ndio? Acha nikuambie kuna watu wengi sana wako na mashida huku nje kuliko hizi zako za vumbi. Sawa? Hebu shuka kwanza, shuka. Na ukitaka kuripoti uende uripoti, umesikia? Nonsense.
If we look at human life, it's not just the fact of being alive, but the process that keeps you there, whether it's food, whether it's health, whether it's education, healthcare, all of these things happen. And I dare say that if we up the value, or if we even recognize the value that we place on human life, some of these things are no-brainers.
Yeah.
You don't have to think twice. If your value for human life is high, then there's no way you will look at a school where children are sitting on stones and not feel something. If your value is up there, you're going to say, this cannot happen. If your value for human life and the things and the elements that make it optimum are high up there, you will not look at a health system that doesn't work and be okay. You will not tell Kenyans that you guys are just making noise. If the value that you place on it is up there, you will do something about it. If the value that you place on human life is great, you will say that if we are to provide a conducive environment for things to happen, then let's make sure that we spend every damn moment where we wake up and work to make sure that that environment is conducive. You will do those things. If the value that you place on human life is up there, then March 2023, where bodies were found in Shakahola in Kilifi County, started to rise by the number, where it was 6 one day, and then it got to 29 the next day, and then it got to 117. See, I know the numbers off head. And then it got to 117, and before you knew it, we were at 329, and then we got to 400, and then we got all the way to 634 bodies found in a farm or an expanse of land in Kenya. Dead bodies, children, sisters, brothers, fathers, mothers.
Entire families.
In shallow graves under one man's voice. This happened in Kenya. Let me walk you through it a little bit. March 2023, that happened. And the alarm was sounded by a child who was actually riding their bicycle somewhere outside and then now spoke to what had happened before. And then we started to hear the names of Mackenzie and people who had started this movement or this church or whatever it was. And then the Interior Ministry, under now Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, went in and said, this is, what did he call it? Genocide, and said so many other things about how we will terrorism and how we will turn this place upside down and we will finish them and we will make sure
no stones will be left unturned.
No stone will be left unturned. We will uproot this entire place and find out everybody who did one thing, the other thing. You know what? In Malindi today, there is a freezer outside the hospital. Yeah. Where 329 remains of people, majority of which one can assume are Kenyans, are sitting in that freezer. Because you know why? DNA analysis has not been done. We don't know who they are. The people who've been crying for the last 2 years do not know where their kith and kin are. They don't know if their kith and kin are amongst the ones that are in the freezer or they're still in the ground in Shakahola.
Yes.
The Interior Ministry has said, okay, well, we'll do something about it. Then that one went. The other day, we heard that Mackenzie's wife, the charges against her were dropped. And Mackenzie is still in prison. He did hunger strike and has even started eating again. He has forgotten about the hunger strike. And they're waiting for his trial to continue. There are people who are waiting. And there are others who have said, this trial cannot even continue because we need to find out who these people are. Okay, so have you found out who they are? No. Have people been able to bury their beloved? No. And then we've just not talked about it. The last time there has been anything concerning Shakahola is from September 2024 when 16 more bodies were exhumed. Has the exhumation process continued? We don't know. Have more people been found? We don't know. This did not happen in a far-off land and Kenyan bodies were brought back in Kenya. Excuse me, dear Mr. President, what is happening? One can say you have a full plate, which you do. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. But this is an issue right here, that close to 1,000 Kenyans or 1,000 bodies have been found in the close to, because 1,000 less 300 have been found in the ground. Those are the ones that we know. One has to ask, did we forget? Did we forget? Did we forget that families have not buried their loved ones? Did we forget that families don't even know what was happening? There's a court case going on. Yes, we know. But then what about those who've been exhumed? What about analysis to find out who they are?
What happened to dignity?
What's going on?
Dear Mr. President, it's the promise that you gave to the people of Kenya at Kasarani when you swore to protect and uphold the Constitution. The people who lost their loved ones and those who continue to wait and hope that maybe their loved ones are just lost because no DNA analysis has brought back any results. They deserve a communication and response from your government. And the person who's your deputy president today was in charge of the docket, the Interior Ministry, and he knows inside out what exactly, in terms of the investigations going on at Shakahola. Is the place still cordoned? Because the last time I checked, the media were not even allowed to go in there. So the people who have information about this is the government, because they're the ones who are managing the scene of crime. But dear Mr. President, it's 1,000 bodies today. 2007 post-election violence, we talk about 2,500 people who died during that time. This is half that number of people who were killed in this country because there is communication that was given to them by a man of God. Mr. President, today as we sit here, families do not have information or answers from your government. What value do we place on human life, Mr. President? Do you care? Because it feels as though, Mr. President, the only thing you care about is yourself. Kenyans, mjipange.
And sadly, someone would say, oh, why is there so much general talk? You guys cannot even point out one person. No, we can. Just most recently, 47-year-old, guys, 47-year-old Stephen Mwiti, tearfully speaking before the court, said, you know what? I was once a father of 6. And as I'm speaking, I have no child. Do you know who he blames? We still call him suspected cult leader, Paul Mackenzie. What am I trying to say, Mr. President? And I keep saying this over and over again. I can point to a real case in point or example of who exactly is suffering. It is not made up by media. We are not just creating situations. If you could reach Stephen Mwita, he is a father of 6, but now a father of none, has no children, and still crying to the courts for an answer. How many more families are broken? How many more families are asking, where is the dignity, dead or alive, of our own people? Mr. President, our constitution is rich. They say it's beautiful. But the most integral part of that constitution is the respect to human life. Mr. President, those bodies are Kenyan people. Can we please progress with dignity? I implore you, for the sake of those who are broken, they're keen, watching or even listening today, are in a dark place, Mr. President. Who is in charge? Please call them out. The consistency in giving us the report, it's almost, the word would be exciting to have a headline when it is reactionary. But what happens to the follow-up, Mr. President? What has taken over so much that we're forgetting what is happening at, or what happened at Shakahola?
There's a phrase that is often used with regards to politics, Mr. President. It's expediency. It has been said that you are a man who keeps his promises to people who are faithful to you, and it is evident, and that is something that one can argue is not common fodder, it's not common credit in politics. Yet you have that ability to honor promises that you've made to people who have supported you politically. It's a short hop to make good the same promise you made to the citizens who also elected you and who elected some of these people. 2.5 years down the line, it is clear and it should be obvious that there are people who cannot do whatever it is you ask them to do. You travel in vehicles, and every so often you are informed that these vehicles have gone for service. And there's something called, among the things you do, is an oil change. The checkup has been done. We look at those who serve in your government, and we look at the things they do beyond talking to us. You understand this better than we do because you work with them and you see them more often than we do. Service delivery is what was the cornerstone of your campaign, Mr. President. And this is something that can only be achieved with the people whom you have selected and opted to work with. We are at a critical phase in the history of this country with too many balls in the air and too many things not working the way they should. Friendship is a wonderful thing, but not when it puts you in a difficult position where you are not only the center of extreme criticism, but you are sometimes seen as the problem that people have. A decision has to be made by you as to the way forward. And I speak as one of the people who are citizens of this country, whose president you are. And I speak as someone who wishes you well and wishes that this government would be a government that we'd speak of in the years to come as one of the best governments this country has ever seen. That possibility exists. But time is running out, Mr. President. You do need to act, and you do need to take the bull by the horns and make those difficult decisions that must be made to steer this country in the direction that is moving away from and take it back to the direction it should move towards.
One would ask that whether a leader takes into consideration the thoughts and, conscience of its people. But is it possible that everybody has the same sentiment over the same thing and could be wrong? Dennis?
Nope. There is a problem when the only voice that you listen to are those who clap for you. There is a problem when dissent is considered disrespect. There is a problem when an individual in the highest office would only seek to reward incompetence and not those that check him out. I mean, we live at a time when if you dissent on what is being done, what will be done to you if you're a member of parliament, you will be ejected from committee leadership. It is a time when if you the president is at a rally and you say no to what he's saying, the next thing you know is you're picked up and you're being labeled to have been drunk simply because you disagreed with the president. We live in a country where when the young people of this country stood up to say no to the finance bill, again, the value of human life, they were being shot outside parliament. No answers to date. We live at a time when bodies were found not far from our offices in Kware. An individual was arrested, was let go. To what value do we really place on human life in this country? These are questions that we ask. And Mr. President, as the city says, you have people who should work to make sure that this is done. The entire leadership structure in the security appointed by you, Mr. President. Mr. President, stop rewarding mediocrity, Bana. You have to do better, Mr. President.
We're looking at some of the comments that you've made this morning, and Atticus is of the opinion that, stop begging. Demand that you will have this inferiority complex and it will be the downfall of Kenyans. Atticus says they bow in front of thieves and say, please. Other people would have apprehended the criminals no matter their titles. So stop begging is what he says. The motherland doesn't seem to have a president that honors the title president. We seem to have taken Kenya as personal enterprises that you run and make decisions as one wishes. Owen Karaoke says now the entire country has known who the president really is. He also says that, this Shakahola massacre still scares him to death. The president that we are addressing and the president that we know are two different people. There is a lot that's going on in the minds of people. There's a lot that people are saying. My implore just continues to be that listen to what Kenyans are saying. If you can, my father used to say something sometimes, and you say, behind, did he say behind or beyond? Beyond the noise, there is something that is being said. There is a message, and that you need to listen to what it is. Kenya is telling you something. And why these conversations are significant in the manner in which we have them, that it is Shakahola at this point. It is 30 minutes before when we're talking about the Auditor General's report. It is a health system that's a mess. It's education that we don't know where it's going. It's infrastructure that's belly up. It's promises that you made that people don't know where they're going. It's you come and say something tomorrow and people laugh at you. Why? Because lived experience has shown them that they can't, that it's not going to be, that it's going to be something totally different. We plan and plan and plan. I forever planning. When is this baby going to be born? And those are the things that people come to you and they say, boss, we have a problem with this. So these issues that we raise, like I say, Shakahola today, Auditor General's report tomorrow, education the next day, these are symptomatic issues that we're bringing before and saying, you know what, they must be dealt with. If you're going to have a Kenya, we talk about economic stability. What do you think affects stability? What do you think affects stability? When your people are engorged with this displeasure or dissatisfaction about things that you said. They didn't tell you to make these promises. You said that you would do it. And so they're coming to you and they're saying, hey, you said you would. But when we open our mouths to say you castigate us and tell us that we're making fun of you, but you said you would, Mr. President.
Gave us charters, Mr. President. You signed them with us.
You see,
you told that you were going to ensure that they would live in a place of peace and stability. You said this was going to happen. And so when 634 Kenyans and maybe people from other nationalities turn up dead, shallow, buried in a place not too far from here, we've got to ask the question. When people cannot afford their dialysis care over something that you had an entire cohort created and designed to make sure that it works, that's a problem. One life lost is one life too many under your watch, Mr. President. I implore you to hear the message behind the noise. I implore you to hear the message behind the humor and the caricatures. I implore you to hear what Kenyans are saying and do something about it. You cannot take the stance that you're taking because it will not get you anywhere.
Even religiously, for those who read the good book, the Bible, the Father does not give you a snake when you ask for fish. He'll give you just fish. A caring father, I mean a caring, true, honest father. Mr. President, if you promised us fish, please don't give us the snake, just the fish, because then we are banking on you that you will keep your word. And like my colleague always says, we wish you well. A win for you is a win for this entire beautiful family called Kenya. And let me tell you, Mr. President, some have said, if you're not comfortable, please leave the country. Hey, Mr. President, I will not leave. Personally, I am going to be here and I'm going to demand for the change.
And he's not going away. Let's take a call from someone this morning. David is calling in on the line. David, good morning.
Morning to Madam Du.
How are you doing?
Hello.
Yes, David, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm calling from Nairobi.
Yes.
Yes, I'm concerned, Madam.
Yes, we can hear you, David. Go ahead.
Yes, the trajectory our country is taking is completely worrisome.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, David.
Yes. Now you realize that the Auditor General has come out very, very clearly, and she has said that the money that is being contributed to SHA is actually not going to the government account, meaning that the whole compartment is not owned by the government. So it is very simple. This means that the idea behind SHA was actually not to help Kenyans get the so-called universal health coverage, but instead the agenda was to milk money from the helpless populace.
Yes, David. Indeed, that is what the report has said.
Now, okay, what is the solution to this, Madam Du? For me, the solution is very simple.
What's your solution? Quickly, David.
Kenyans should look beyond politics of tribalism. Okay? Then come 2027. We have to say that enough is enough and send all these people home. There is no way we can expect a combination of Ruto and Raila to give us a solution. These are people who are the real problems bedeviling the country right now.
Thank you very much for your comments on that, David. I mean, and just also to hear from a few more people. Asante Sana for sharing that this morning. And just to continue to hear where we are in terms of what you would want the president to do. Dennis, you had a few comments.
Yeah, for me, I want a president who's not full of double-speak, man. I cannot have a president who tells me something today and changes it the next day. I cannot have a president who says today I have banned Harambee, then tomorrow you're giving 20 million shillings without telling us where you're getting that money from. Mr. President, 1.4 million shillings, which is your salary, even if you go to church, 10% of that is 140,000 shillings. Mr. President, where did you get 20 million shillings to give out? You're donating land, public land. That is not your job. We have National Lands Commission under Article 62 of the Constitution who are supposed to do that. Mr. President, you don't have those powers. Stop lecturing us and telling us that you can do these things because, Mr. President, we know ikatiba tumeisoma. You're not the only one who has it.
CT?
I was thinking of Shakahola and what it is that it symbolizes in our nation. In Kigali, there's a genocide memorial. And it acts as a reminder of the terrible things that happened in 1994. When the horrors around Shakahola were revealed to Kenyans and the world, it presented a nightmare situation that one prays one never has to witness or one has to encounter, and yet here we are.
Yeah.
When things are not working in a country, people die. When services are not provided as they ought to for health services, people die. When CBAs are not honored and you have health workers going on strike, people die. When young people protest because they want a better country than the one they have and they're shot, they die. And some disappear. We are etching into history many, many incidences and issues that will follow us for a very long to come, because these things that I've mentioned characterize us as the sort of people we are. It characterizes us as a nation. When money that is intended for very specific functions that should benefit the public do not end up where they should, and yet it goes elsewhere. When the number of people in the country who are on the brink of starvation increases, when the number of jobs that people have reduce on a daily basis, then again, these events not just characterizes us as a people, but it characterizes our leadership. And that will be etched into history. That will be the remembrance, just like the Kigali Genocide Memorial. So alongside with Shakahola, all the issues that have guaranteed that Kenyans are denied the very fundamentals that are their right will go down in our history. And Mr. President, unfortunately, when you're the president of a country that has all these issues, Heavy on your shoulders will be this task, but it is you that people will look to. And it is you that people will blame. But that doesn't have to be the constant.
No.
There is always a time and an opportunity for change if you will it and if you desire to make that change.
If you hear what your people are saying, because that's it. If you hear the message behind the rumblings, if you hear the message behind the tears, if you hear the message behind the fear, if you hear the message behind the frustration, then you would take it as a good thing that people are asking you to actually make a change. Is the change going to come about in the people that you've appointed beyond political favors to actually do a good job? Make the change. Is it going to make sure that you stop the bleed from money that goes from one place to the next instead of where it's supposed to go in terms of corruption? Then stop the bleed. Is it about projects that should have started and should have continued and then that they don't? Stop the bleed. Is it for you to listen to what Kenyans are saying and saying, Mr. President, this is all we want? We want to send our children to school. We want to be able to eat even one square meal in a day. We want to be able to take our sick to hospital and come out under the promise that you made without having to remove an extra shilling from our pocket, which guess what? We don't have. We want to be able to afford life. We want to be able to survive. We want to be able to then stand up and say that there's a problem without having to be under the fear of being disappeared. Kenyans just want to exist within the four walls, if they're four walls of this republic, and say, you know what? Can we just get along without fear, without lack, without corruption? At least get it down to levels where people can then say they'll be able to operate. And then be able to call out a government where you see that they have not been accountable and then not fear not getting home at night. That you can open your mouth and say something and you be afraid that somebody's going to pick you up because you voiced an opinion, because you voiced a fear, because you voiced a concern. Mr. President, those things have to change. And we already know that you're asking Kenyans for another go at the seat. I tell you that these things, if you fix them, I can predict today that Kenyans wouldn't have a problem even putting you back there. But here we are saying that, you know, things are going pretty south. And if they're not fixed, there's going to be an issue. There already is. People are not happy. People are disgruntled. People are frustrated. There's an opportunity for you to fix it, dear Mr. President, by the things that you hear. Don't take it personally, because it's not a personal fight, but it's an opportunity for you to actually fix things and make them run, and make them run properly. Dear Mr. President, it is our hope that you hear what we are saying today, and that you hear what we say when we bring these conversations to your doorstep every week, and we'll continue doing them day after day. Dear Mr. President, good morning. It's 10 o'clock.